Sergeant First Class Elena Reyes stood at attention in the freezing rain, guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier at Arlington National Cemetery. Her uniform was immaculate despite the weather. Her movements were precise as she executed the 21 steps of her walk, turned, and walked back. 21 steps, 21 seconds, 21-gun salute. Every movement honored the fallen. Every step was perfection. Around her neck, beneath her uniform, hung the Medal of Honor she'd earned 3 years ago in Afghanistan. She wasn't supposed to wear it while on duty as a tomb sentinel. The Tomb Guard badge was the only medal worn during watch. But Elena kept the medal close to her heart, a reminder of the soldiers she'd saved and the ones she couldn't. It was October, and the leaves around Arlington were brilliant shades of red and gold. Tourists gathered despite the rain, watching the changing of the guard with reverent silence. Most of them had no idea that the soldier before them was one of only a handful of women to ever earn the nation's highest military honor. Elena preferred it that way. At the tomb, it wasn't about individual glory. It was about honoring those who gave everything. Her watch ended, and she was relieved by another sentinel. Elena marched back to the guard quarters beneath the memorial amphitheater, her shoes clicking perfectly on the marble. Inside, she found Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb waiting. Webb was a fellow sentinel, but unlike most of the guards who treated Elena with respect, Webb had never accepted her presence here. "Reyes," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Commander wants to see you." "When?" "Now better hurry," he seemed annoyed. Elena changed out of her wet uniform and into a fresh one, making sure everything was perfect. As a tomb sentinel, she was held to the highest standards. Her uniform, her bearing, her conduct, all had to be flawless. She'd worked harder than anyone to earn her place here. After receiving the Medal of Honor for pulling 6 wounded soldiers from a burning vehicle while under enemy fire, Elena could have requested any assignment in the Army. She could have retired with honor. She could have taken a comfortable desk job. Instead, she'd requested assignment to the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard, and specifically asked to try out for the Tomb Guard. "Why?" her commander at the time had asked. "You've done enough, Sergeant Reyes. You've earned the right to rest." "I don't want to rest, sir," Elena had said. "I want to serve, and I can't think of a greater honor than guarding the tomb." The selection process had been brutal. Only the best soldiers were even considered for the Tomb Guard. Elena had studied every detail of the 24-hour watch schedule, memorized the 175 notable people buried at Arlington, learned every aspect of the tomb's history and significance. She'd endured months of training, learning the unique walk, the rifle movements, the absolute perfection required. She'd practiced in heat, cold, rain, and snow. She'd been critiqued on every microscopic detail of her uniform and bearing. And she'd made it. She'd earned the Tomb Guard badge, one of the least awarded badges in the military. But some people, like Webb, still thought she didn't belong. Elena reached the commander's office and knocked. "Enter." Commander Lieutenant Colonel James Morrison sat behind his desk, his expression unreadable. He was a fair officer who ran the Old Guard with strict discipline and high standards. "Sergeant Reyes, take a seat." Elena sat, her posture perfect. Morrison was quiet for a moment, studying some papers on his desk. "I've received a complaint about you." Elena's heart sank. "Sir?" "A civilian has filed a legal complaint alleging that you're wearing medals fraudulently. Specifically, the Medal of Honor." Elena's mouth fell open in shock. "Sir, that's absurd. I earned that medal. It's documented. President Hernandez presented it to me himself." "I know that," Morrison said. "But this civilian, a lawyer named Douglas Whitmore, claims to have evidence that the action you were cited for never happened. He's filed a complaint with the Army demanding an investigation. He's also filed in civil court." "On what basis?" Elena asked, struggling to keep her voice calm. "He claims to have testimony from soldiers who were there that day, who say you fabricated your story. He's alleging fraud, stolen valor, and demanding that you be stripped of the medal and prosecuted." Elena felt like she'd been punched. "Sir, that's a lie. Everything that happened is documented. There were witnesses. The soldiers I pulled from that vehicle are alive because of what I did." "I believe you, Sergeant Reyes, but we're legally required to respond to this complaint. There will be an investigation." "Who is this Douglas Whitmore? Why would he do this?" Morrison's expression darkened. That's what concerns me. Mr. Whitmore has a history of filing complaints against female service members. He runs a website claiming that women are given medals and positions they don't deserve, that the military is being weakened by diversity initiatives. Alina closed her eyes. She'd heard of people like this. Men who were so threatened by women's success that they tried to tear them down with lies and legal harassment. "What happens now?" she asked. "You'll be interviewed by investigators. They'll review all the documentation from your Medal of Honor citation. They'll interview the soldiers who were there. This will take time. And until then..." Morrison hesitated. "Until then, there's been a court order. You're prohibited from wearing the Medal of Honor in public or representing yourself as a Medal of Honor recipient." Alina stood up abruptly. "Sir, you can't be serious. A civilian court can't." "It's temporary pending the investigation. I'm sorry, Reyes, I know this is unjust, but we have to follow legal procedure." "This is harassment," Alina said, her voice shaking with anger. "This man is using the courts to attack me because I'm a woman who succeeded." "I agree, and I'm going to make sure the investigators know that. But for now, you need to comply with the court order." Alina felt tears of frustration building, but she blinked them away. She wouldn't cry. Not here, not over this. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. "Reyes, I want you to know something. Every person in this regiment knows what you did to earn that medal. We know who you are. This complaint doesn't change that." "Thank you, sir." Alina left the office and walked through Arlington, past rows of white headstones, each marking a soldier who'd given their life for their country. She stopped at the tomb and stood at a distance, watching the current sentinel pace his walk. 21 steps, turn 21 steps. Perfect, precise, honorable. That night the story hit the news. Female Medal of Honor recipient accused of fraud. Court orders soldier to stop wearing nation's highest honor. Investigation launched into Combat Heroines Medal. Alina's phone exploded with messages. Reporters requesting interviews. Fellow soldiers expressing outrage and support. And hate messages from people who'd never met her, telling her she was a liar, a fraud, a disgrace. She turned off her phone and sat in the dark, thinking about the day she'd earned the medal. The explosion, the burning vehicle, the screams of her fellow soldiers trapped inside, the enemy fire from all directions. She'd run toward the flames without thinking, without hesitating. She'd pulled Corporal Martinez out first, his legs shattered. Then Private Chen, unconscious from smoke inhalation. Then Specialist Rodriguez, Sergeant Williams, and Lieutenant Foster. 6 soldiers pulled from certain death while bullets tore through the air around her. She'd been shot twice during the rescue. She still had the scars. And now some lawyer who'd never served, who'd never faced enemy fire, who'd never pulled a burning comrade from a wreckage, was calling her a fraud. Alina's hands clenched into fists. She would fight this. She would prove the truth. And she would make sure Douglas Whitmore faced consequences for his lies. She just didn't know yet how powerful those consequences would be. The investigation began immediately. Alina was interviewed for hours by Army investigators who asked her to recount every detail of the day she'd earned the Medal of Honor. She told them everything: the convoy, the IED explosion, the burning vehicle, the rescue, the wounds she'd sustained. "We'll need to interview the soldiers you rescued," the lead investigator, Colonel Sarah Martinez, said. "And we'll need all medical records, after-action reports, everything." "It's all documented, ma'am," Alina said. "This is a waste of time. That man is lying." "I understand your frustration, Sergeant Reyes, but we have to be thorough. If we're going to shut down this complaint, we need ironclad evidence." Meanwhile, Douglas Whitmore was everywhere. He appeared on news programs, on podcasts, on his website. He was a man in his 50s with cold eyes and a smooth voice that made his lies sound reasonable. "I'm not attacking Sergeant Reyes personally," he told one interviewer. "I'm simply ensuring that our nation's highest honor isn't devalued by false claims. I have testimony from multiple soldiers who were present that day who say her story doesn't match reality." "Who are these soldiers?" the interviewer asked. "They wish to remain anonymous for now, fearing military retaliation, but they'll testify when the time comes." Alina watched the interview from the tomb guard quarters, her anger building. Anonymous testimony. Convenient. Staff Sergeant Webb walked past and saw what she was watching. "Maybe he has a point," Webb said casually. Seems suspicious that a woman just happened to perform the exact kind of heroic action that would get her a medal. Elena turned to face him. I have scars from bullet wounds I got during that rescue. I have 6 soldiers who are alive because of what I did. What do you have, Webb? What have you ever done besides mock people who have accomplished more than you? Webb's face reddened. I'm a tomb sentinel, that's accomplishment enough. Then act like one. Tomb sentinels have honor. Webb stomped away, and Elena returned to watching the interview, her stomach in knots. 3 days later, Elena received notification that Douglas Whitmore had filed an additional motion in court. He was demanding that she be removed from tomb guard duty pending the investigation. He's claiming that allowing a potentially fraudulent Medal of Honor recipient to guard the tomb is disrespectful to those buried there, Colonel Martinez explained when she called Elena to her office. This is insane, Elena said. He's not going to stop until he destroys my career. We're fighting the motion. But Elena, I need to prepare you for the possibility that the court might grant it temporarily. Judges sometimes issue protective orders in cases like this, just to maintain status quo during investigation. I can't lose this assignment, ma'am. The tomb. It's everything to me. Martinez's expression was sympathetic. I know, we're doing everything we can. But 2 days later, the court granted Whitmore's motion. Elena was temporarily removed from tomb guard duty, pending resolution of the investigation. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison called her to his office to deliver the news personally. Reyes, I'm sorry. This is wrong, but my hands are tied. You'll be reassigned to administrative duties until this is resolved. Elena felt her world crumbling. First her medal, now her assignment. Everything she'd worked for was being stripped away by a man who'd never even met her. Sir, there has to be something we can do. This is harassment. Our legal team is working on it, but court orders have to be followed, even unjust ones. That afternoon, as Elena cleaned out her locker in the tomb guard quarters, she found Webb watching her with barely concealed satisfaction. Guess you don't belong here after all, he said. Elena turned to face him, her voice low and dangerous. I earned my place here, and when this is over, when the investigation proves I'm telling the truth, you're going to apologize, publicly. If the investigation proves you're telling the truth, Webb said with a smirk. Big if. Elena wanted to punch him, but she kept her hands at her sides. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. She wouldn't give anyone ammunition to use against her. She left Arlington that evening feeling more alone than she'd ever felt. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages, but she ignored most of them. She couldn't handle the support or the criticism right now. But one message made her pause. It was from Corporal Alex Martinez, one of the soldiers she'd pulled from the burning vehicle 3 years ago. Elena, I saw the news. This is garbage. I'm alive because of you. We all are. I'm calling the investigators tomorrow to give my statement. Whatever you need, I'm here. You saved my life. Now let me help save your career. Elena felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She called Martinez immediately. Alex, she said when he answered, thank you. Are you kidding? Elena, you ran into fire for us. You took bullets for us. Some lying lawyer isn't going to change what happened. He says he has witnesses, soldiers who say I'm lying. Then he's lying about having witnesses. Everyone who was there that day knows exactly what you did. Every single one of us will testify. Over the next week, all 6 soldiers Elena had rescued contacted the investigators. They gave detailed statements confirming everything Elena had said. They described watching her run toward the burning vehicle. They remembered her pulling them out one by one. They showed their scars from that day. The investigation is going well, Colonel Martinez told Elena during an update. Every witness we've interviewed supports your account. We haven't found a single soldier who contradicts your story. What about Whitmore's anonymous witnesses? He keeps claiming they exist, but he hasn't produced anyone. His lawyer is stalling, saying the witnesses are afraid to come forward. The judge is getting impatient. So when will this be over? Soon, I hope. We're preparing a comprehensive report for the court. Once we submit it, the judge will have to rule. But that night, Douglas Whitmore appeared on a major news network with a bombshell announcement. I'm revealing tonight that one of my witnesses has agreed to go public, Whitmore said, looking directly into the camera. Former staff, Sergeant Kevin Brennan, was present during the incident in question. and he's prepared to testify that Sergeant Reyes' account is fabricated. Alina's blood ran cold. Kevin Brennan. She knew that name. He'd been in her unit in Afghanistan, but he hadn't been on that convoy. He'd been at base that day. The next segment showed Brennan, a man in his 40s with a hard face and resentful eyes. "I was there," Brennan said, "and what Reyes is claiming didn't happen the way she says. She's exaggerating her role. Other soldiers did the actual rescuing. She just took credit." It was a lie, a complete, obvious lie. But it was a lie being broadcast to millions of people. Alina's phone rang. It was Colonel Martinez. "I saw it," Martinez said. "Alina, we checked the records. Brennan wasn't on that convoy. He wasn't even in the same location that day. He's lying." "Then why is he doing this?" "We're looking into that now, but don't worry. His lie is easily disproven. We have logs, GPS data, everything. This is actually good for us. He's given us a specific claim we can destroy with documentation." But Alina wasn't comforted. Even if they proved Brennan was lying, the damage was done. Millions of people had now heard someone claim she was a fraud. The next morning, Alina drove to Arlington even though she wasn't on duty. She stood near the tomb, watching the current sentinel perform his walk. She wasn't wearing her Medal of Honor. The court order prohibited it. She wasn't in her tomb guard uniform. She'd been removed from duty. She was just Alina Reyes, watching from a distance, feeling like everything she'd worked for was slipping away. A tour group walked past, and Alina heard two men talking. "That's her," one whispered, pointing at Alina. "The one who's accused of faking the Medal of Honor." "I knew it was too good to be true," the other responded. "A woman doing all that? Come on, obviously made up for political correctness." Alina turned away, her hands shaking. She walked deeper into Arlington, past rows of graves, trying to find peace among the fallen. She stopped at a grave marked unknown. Not the famous tomb, but one of thousands of unknown soldiers buried here. Men and women who died for their country and were never identified. "I'm fighting for you too," Alina whispered to the silent grave. "For everyone who served and sacrificed. I won't let them turn the Medal of Honor into a political football. I won't let them dishonor what it means." Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You should drop this. Resign quietly. You're only making it worse for yourself and for women in the military. You're proving we can't handle the pressure." Alina deleted the message and blocked the number. Then she called Colonel Martinez. "Ma'am, I want to request a formal court-martial for Kevin Brennan. He lied under oath about my service. That's a violation of military law. I want him prosecuted." There was a pause. "Alina, are you sure? That will extend this process, keep it in the news longer." "I'm sure. These people are using lies to attack not just me, but every woman who serves. If we let them get away with it, it will never stop. We need to fight back. Hard." Martinez was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Okay, I'll start the paperwork. But Alina, this is going to get worse before it gets better." "I know," Alina said, looking at the rows of graves surrounding her. "But these soldiers didn't quit when things got hard. Neither will I." What Alina didn't know was that Colonel Martinez had already started investigating Douglas Whitmore himself, and what she was finding would blow this case wide open. The consequences were coming, and they would be devastating. 2 weeks after Kevin Brennan's televised lie, Alina sat in a military courtroom at Fort Myer, just across from Arlington National Cemetery. The room was packed with soldiers, lawyers, and media. This wasn't her trial, it was Brennan's. He was facing charges of making false official statements and perjury. But everyone knew this case was really about Alina and the Medal of Honor. The prosecutor, Captain James Wung, was methodical and thorough. He presented GPS logs showing that Brennan had been 30 miles from the convoy on the day of the attack. He presented duty rosters showing Brennan's assignment was at the forward operating base. He presented testimony from Brennan's own platoon leader, confirming Brennan wasn't present. "Staff Sergeant Brennan," Wung said during cross-examination, "you testified on national television that you were present during the vehicle explosion and rescue. You said you witnessed Sergeant Reyes exaggerating her role, but military records prove conclusively that you were not there. Why did you lie?" Brennan shifted uncomfortably. I was mistaken about which incident it was. There were multiple attacks during that deployment." "Mistaken?" Wung's voice was sharp. You gave specific details, you described the scene. You claim to have witnessed Sergeant Reyes' actions personally. That's not a mistake, Staff Sergeant. That's perjury. I was confused. Were you paid to make this statement? Brennan's lawyer stood up immediately. Objection. Sustained, the judge said. Counsel, do you have evidence of payment? We're investigating that now, Your Honor, Wong said. Alina watched Brennan squirm, and despite her anger, she felt a flicker of pity. He was clearly in over his head. Someone had used him, fed him a story, possibly paid him to lie. But who? The answer came during Colonel Martinez's testimony. Martinez had been investigating Douglas Whitmore for weeks, and what she'd discovered was shocking. Your Honor, Martinez said from the witness stand, during our investigation into Mr. Whitmore's allegations, we discovered that he has filed similar complaints against 17 other female service members over the past 5 years. In every case, the allegations were proven false. In every case, Mr. Whitmore harassed these women through legal means until several of them resigned from service. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge banged his gavel for silence. Additionally, Martinez continued, we discovered financial connections between Mr. Whitmore and several organizations that oppose women in combat roles. He's been paid substantial sums to file these complaints and create negative publicity around female service members. Alina's jaw dropped. Whitmore had been paid to attack her. This wasn't just one bitter man. This was an organized campaign. We also discovered, Martinez said, looking directly at Brennan, a wire transfer of $15,000 from one of these organizations to Staff Sergeant Brennan's bank account, dated 2 days before his television appearance. Brennan's face went white. His lawyer looked shocked. The judge leaned forward. Captain Wong, do you have documentation of this transfer? Yes, Your Honor. We're submitting it as evidence now. The implications were clear. Brennan had been paid to lie about Alina. And if Brennan had been paid, then this entire case against Alina was a fraud. After Martinez's testimony, the prosecution called Alex Martinez, the soldier Alina had rescued, to the stand. Alex was in a wheelchair now, his legs never fully recovering from his injuries. But his voice was strong and clear as he testified. I was in that vehicle, he said. I was trapped, burning, dying. Sergeant Reyes ran through enemy fire to pull me out. She was shot twice during the rescue. I watched her bleed while she dragged me to safety. She saved my life and 5 others. That's not exaggeration. That's not political correctness. That's documented fact. He looked directly at Brennan. I don't know why you lied about her, but your lie isn't just about her. It's about all of us she saved. You're calling us liars too, and I won't accept that. One by one, all 6 rescued soldiers testified. Their stories were consistent, detailed, and powerful. They described Alina's heroism with tears and gratitude. By the end of the day, Brennan's case had collapsed. His lawyer negotiated a plea deal. Brennan would plead guilty to making false statements, testify against Whitmore, and accept a dishonorable discharge. But the real drama came 3 days later, when Douglas Whitmore himself was called to testify in a federal court about his campaign against female service members. Alina sat in the gallery, watching the man who'd tried to destroy her career squirm under questioning from a federal prosecutor. Mr. Whitmore, you filed 19 complaints against female service members, alleging fraud, stolen valor, and incompetence. How many of these complaints were substantiated? The investigations were often politically motivated, Whitmore said. The military protects women. Answer the question, how many were substantiated? None were officially, but that doesn't mean. So 19 false complaints, all against women. The prosecutor pulled out a stack of documents. And you were paid over $200,000 by 3 organizations to file these complaints and create negative publicity. Isn't that true? I was compensated for my time and expertise. You were paid to harass female soldiers. You weaponized the legal system to drive women out of the military. And when legitimate investigations proved your allegations false, you doubled down, taking your lies to the media. Whitmore's lawyer tried to intervene, but the damage was done. The evidence was overwhelming. Whitmore had been running a coordinated campaign to attack successful women in the military, funded by organizations opposed to women in combat. The federal charges included fraud, conspiracy, and making false statements to federal investigators. Whitmore was looking at serious prison time. But for Alina, the most satisfying moment came when the Army's Inspector General issued his final report on her Medal of Honor. After exhaustive investigation, the report stated, we find that Sergeant First Class Alina Reyes earned the Medal of Honor through extraordinary heroism and sacrifice. Every allegation against her has been thoroughly debunked. Her service record is exemplary. The complaint filed by Douglas Whitmore was fraudulent, malicious, and part of a criminal conspiracy. The court order prohibiting Alina from wearing her medal was immediately lifted. The order removing her from tomb guard duty was vacated. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison called Alina to his office the day the report was released. Sergeant Reyes, I'm pleased to inform you that you're reinstated to tomb guard duty effective immediately. I'm also recommending you for promotion to Master Sergeant. Alina felt tears of relief building. Thank you, sir. No, Sergeant, thank you. You could have quit during all of this. You could have taken an easier path. Instead, you fought back and exposed a conspiracy that was hurting female service members across the military. You protected not just yourself, but everyone who serves. That evening, Alina returned to the tomb for the first time in weeks. She was in uniform, the tomb guard badge polished to perfection, and beneath her uniform, close to her heart, was the Medal of Honor. As she prepared to take her watch, she saw Staff Sergeant Webb standing nearby. He approached her slowly, his expression uncomfortable. Sergeant Reyes, he said, I owe you an apology. I was wrong about you. I let my own biases cloud my judgment. You earned your place here. You earned everything you have. I'm sorry. Alina studied him. The apology seemed genuine, though it had clearly cost him something to deliver it. Thank you, Webb. Apology accepted. Webb nodded and walked away. Alina stepped into position, preparing to begin her watch. 21 steps, 21 seconds, 21 gun salute. As she walked, the weight of the medal beneath her uniform reminded her of why she was here. Not for glory or recognition, but to honor those who had served and sacrificed. The tourists watching didn't know her story. They didn't know about the false allegations, the court battles, the conspiracy. They just saw a sentinel perfectly executing her duty. And that was exactly how Alina wanted it. But across the country, in military bases and courtrooms and newsrooms, people were talking about what had happened. About the woman who'd refused to back down. About the conspiracy that had been exposed. About the changes that would come from this. The consequences were just beginning, and they would reshape how the military handled these attacks forever. 3 months after the investigation concluded, Alina stood in the East Room of the White House. She wasn't receiving an award this time. She'd been invited to witness President Hernandez sign a new executive order. The Military Service Members Protection Act, the president announced, will provide new safeguards against harassment of service members through fraudulent legal complaints. It establishes penalties for those who file false allegations and creates a rapid response protocol to investigate patterns of harassment. The president looked directly at Alina, who stood in the front row with the 6 soldiers she'd rescued. This legislation exists because Sergeant First Class Alina Reyes refused to be silenced, the president said. When she was falsely accused, she could have resigned quietly. Instead, she fought back and exposed a conspiracy that had targeted dozens of service members. Her courage protects everyone who wears the uniform. After the ceremony, Alina was approached by Rachel Foster, one of the 17 women Whitmore had previously targeted. Thank you, Rachel said, tears in her eyes. I left the military because of Whitmore's harassment. I couldn't fight anymore, but you fought for all of us. Alina hugged her. I'm sorry the system failed you. It did, but it's getting better because of you. Over the next few months, the ripple effects continued. Douglas Whitmore was convicted of fraud and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution to the women he'd harassed. The 3 organizations that had funded his campaign were investigated. 2 were shut down for fraud. The 3rd agreed to a settlement that included public apologies and substantial donations to veterans' organizations. Kevin Brennan received a dishonorable discharge and was convicted of perjury. He publicly apologized to Alina, admitting he'd been desperate for money and made a terrible choice. Alina returned to her duties at Arlington, grateful for the normalcy of the tomb guard routine. But her life had changed in ways she couldn't have anticipated. She was invited to speak at military academies, sharing her story with cadets. She testified before Congress about harassment in the military. She became an advocate for service members facing false allegations. And she continued to guard the tomb with the same dedication she'd always had. One cold morning in January, Alina was finishing her watch when she noticed a woman in the crowd watching her. The woman was elderly, maybe 70, with white hair and kind eyes. After Alina's watch ended and she'd marched back to the guard quarters, the woman was waiting. "Sergeant Reyes, may I speak with you for a moment?" "Of course, ma'am." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "My son is buried here. He was killed in Iraq 15 years ago. When I heard about what happened to you, about how they tried to take away your medal and your honor, I was so angry. My son died serving this country. These men were dishonoring his sacrifice by trying to destroy yours." She took Alina's hand. "Thank you for fighting back. Thank you for protecting the integrity of service. My son would be proud to know you're guarding this place." Alina felt her own tears building. "It's my honor, ma'am. Thank you for your son's sacrifice." These moments, connecting with families of the fallen, reminded Alina why she'd fought so hard. It wasn't about her ego or career. It was about protecting the meaning of service itself. 6 months after the executive order was signed, Alina received orders for a new assignment. She was being promoted to Master Sergeant and asked to help develop training programs for tomb guards. "You'll still serve as a sentinel," Lieutenant Colonel Morrison told her. "But you'll also train the next generation. We need your experience and your integrity." Alina accepted immediately. Teaching others to honor the fallen felt like a natural extension of her service. Her first class included 3 female soldiers hopping to earn their tomb guard badges. They looked at Alina with a mixture of awe and nervousness. "Being a tomb guard isn't about gender," Alina told them on their first day. "It's not about what people expect or don't expect. It's about excellence. It's about honor. It's about being willing to stand in the cold and rain and heat, performing the same perfect movements because the people we honor deserve nothing less than perfection." She paused, looking at each of them. "Some people will doubt you. Some will say you don't belong. Some may even try to tear you down like they tried with me. But if you know in your heart that you're here for the right reasons, if you're willing to do the work, then you belong. Don't let anyone tell you different." One of the female soldiers raised her hand. "Sergeant Reyes, how did you stay strong during the investigation when everyone was doubting you?" Alina thought about it. "I remembered why I was here. I remembered the soldiers I saved and the ones I couldn't save. I remembered that this wasn't about me, it was about something bigger. When you're fighting for something bigger than yourself, it's easier to endure the hard times." Over the next year, Alina trained dozens of soldiers. Some made it through the rigorous selection process, others didn't. But all of them left with a deeper understanding of what it meant to serve with honor. Alina also reconnected with the 6 soldiers she'd rescued. They gathered every year on the anniversary of the attack, remembering what they'd survived and celebrating the life they still had. "You gave us a second chance," Alex Martinez said at their second annual gathering. "I got married last month. I have a daughter now. None of that would exist if you hadn't run into those flames." "I just did what anyone would have done," Alina said. "No," Specialist Rodriguez countered. "You did what a hero does, what a Medal of Honor recipient does. Own it, Alina, you earned it." Alina smiled. For so long, she'd struggled with being called a hero. The term felt too big, too important, but maybe Rodriguez was right. Maybe it was time to own what she'd done and what she represented. 2 years after the investigation ended, Alina was invited to the Congressional Medal of Honor Society convention. She joined the small fraternity of living recipients, men and women who demonstrated extraordinary valor. At dinner one evening, she sat with retired General William Crane, who'd earned his medal in Vietnam 50 years earlier. "I followed your case," Crane said. "What happened to you was disgraceful, but the way you handled it was exemplary." "Thank you, sir." "Do you know what impressed me most?" Crane asked. "Not that you proved your innocence, that was obvious to anyone who looked at the evidence. What impressed me was that you could have settled quietly, could have accepted some kind of compromise to make the case go away. Instead, you fought to expose the whole conspiracy. You protected other service members at risk to yourself. That's leadership." "I couldn't let them get away with it, sir. Too many women had already been hurt." Exactly, you saw an injustice and you fought it, regardless of personal cost. That's the same quality that earned you this medal in the first place. You run toward the fire, not away from it. Elena thought about that conversation for a long time. Maybe her greatest act of heroism wasn't pulling soldiers from a burning vehicle. Maybe it was refusing to let lies and corruption go unchallenged. Maybe both took the same kind of courage, the courage to do what was right when it would be easier to do nothing. 3 years after the case ended, Elena stood at the tomb on a cold November morning. She'd been promoted to sergeant major, the highest enlisted rank. She was now the senior tomb guard, responsible for maintaining standards and training new sentinels. But today, she was performing one of her final watches before transitioning fully to administrative and training duties. 21 steps, turn 21 steps. The movements were muscle memory now, performed with unconscious precision, but they still filled her with pride and purpose. A school group watched from behind the barrier, children bundled in winter coats. Their teacher explained the significance of the tomb, the unknown soldiers, the constant watch. "That's Sergeant Major Reyes," Elena heard the teacher say. "She's a Medal of Honor recipient. She's one of the bravest soldiers in America." Elena didn't react. Sentinels never broke their bearing during watch, but she felt a warmth inside. The children watching her might not understand yet what the tomb represented, but someday they would. Someday they'd remember the perfect ceremony, the dedication, the honor. And maybe one of them would be inspired to serve. After her watch, Elena changed into her administrative uniform and walked through Arlington. She stopped at graves randomly, reading names, noting service dates. Each stone represented a life of service. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel Foster, the woman who'd thanked her after the White House ceremony. "Elena, I wanted you to know I re-enlisted. I'm back in the Army. Your fight gave me the courage to come back. Thank you for showing me that we belong." Elena smiled and typed back, "Welcome home, soldier. The Army is better with you in it." That evening, Elena attended a ceremony at Fort Myer where Staff Sergeant Webb was being promoted to Sergeant First Class. She'd been invited personally by Webb. After the promotion ceremony, Webb approached her. "Sergeant Major, thank you for coming." "Congratulations on the promotion, Webb." "I wanted to tell you something," Webb said. "When I was treating you badly, doubting you, I was really doubting myself. I was insecure about my own abilities, so I tore down yours. That was wrong. You taught me that real strength isn't about putting others down. It's about lifting them up." "That's good leadership, Webb. Hold on to that." As Elena drove home that night, she thought about the journey she'd been on. From the burning vehicle in Afghanistan to the false accusations to this moment of peace and purpose. She'd been tested in ways she never expected, not just physically in combat, but morally and emotionally in the courtroom of public opinion. The court had demanded she remove her Medal of Honor. Powerful people had tried to destroy her career and reputation. But they'd failed. The consequences they faced, prison, disgrace, exposure, were just, but the greater consequence was the change they'd sparked. The new protections for service members, the awareness of coordinated harassment campaigns, the understanding that attacking one soldier's honor was an attack on all who served. Elena had fought back not just for herself, but for every service member who'd been targeted, doubted, or dismissed. And in doing so, she'd proven that the Medal of Honor around her neck represented more than one act of heroism. It represented a lifetime commitment to doing what was right, no matter the cost. The court had demanded she remove her medal. But Elena Reyes had shown them, and the world, that true honor couldn't be removed by any court, any conspiracy, any lie. It could only be earned through service, sacrifice, and the courage to stand for truth. And she would carry that honor, that commitment, for the rest of her life. Standing watch, training others, protecting the legacy of all who served. 21 steps, 21 seconds, 21-gun salute. Forever honoring the fallen. Forever proving that courage endures. Forever standing guard.